The Gaza genocide has truly exposed every single Western media outlet and so-called journalists, including those who fooled all of us for years by pretending to be liberal and people who cared about human dignity. The 22 months of Holocaust, the biggest since the Second World War, has shown the true colors of these outlets and individuals working for them. The Gaza genocide has also given us a true understanding on the control of the Israeli lobby over our institutions, including media across the West. We have seen the BBC coming out in the open as the flag bearer of the genocidal regime of war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. BBC is not even pretending. It has been absolutely unashamed about its support for the genocidal regime. We have also seen many individuals getting cancelled for choosing to objectively report the Gaza genocide. And now James O'Brien from the LBC has capitulated to the power of this Israeli stroke Zionist lobby. His stunning on-air apology this morning would give you the exact sense of the power that the Israeli Zionist lobby wields over the Western media outlets. But first, listen to his extraordinary on-air apology that he broadcast on his show this morning.
This is very important. At this time yesterday on the show, I read out a message from a listener called Chris, who said that his wife had been brought up in the Jewish faith and had attended what he described as a Shabbat school. He went on to make further claims about what he said she had been taught in that school. As with all the texts and messages that I read out on the programme, I did so in good faith, but the message has understandably upset a lot of people. And I regret taking those unsubstantiated claims at face value, and I'm genuinely sorry for that. And it is very important that I get that out there. And thank you for your attention. It is 11:49. You are listening to James O'Brien on
The text that James mentions here, he had read out in his show yesterday. And that text was this.
I'm fascinated by objectivity, which is why I'm going to read out this from Chris. I do think it's worth saying that these warped views are not just an Israeli problem. My wife was brought up Jewish, and at Shabbat school in a leafy Hertfordshire town, she was taught that one Jewish life is worth thousands of Arab lives, and that Arabs are cockroaches to be crushed. Whilst young children are being taught such hatred and dehumanization, undoubtedly on both sides, as Chris points out, then they will always be able to justify death and cruelty. And it does indeed start young, but there is a danger perhaps that we only ever hear one side of the dehumanization and propaganda processes.
Of course, the LBC was quick to delete the segment from all its social media channels. And then this extraordinary apology from James himself. Not that James O'Brien had cooked up that claim. Zionists have always used this line to mock Arabs, making it a topic of constant media debate. This was a headline of Israeli newspaper Haaretz. Now watch this old clip of a rabbi.
Value of every Jew count like many other goyim. In his spiritual value, even you take righteous goyim and you put them compared to one righteous Jew, one Jew can be equal like thousands of righteous goyim. If you put them on a scale.
This is also a good time to remind people about a dreaded Israeli-American terrorist called Baruch Goldstein, who massacred close to 30 Muslim worshippers at a mosque in Hebron in 1994. He was eventually beaten to death by the survivors of that terror attack. Thousands had gathered to attend the funeral of this terrorist in Israel. This was the coverage of his funeral in the Los Angeles Times, which reported this, and I quote, Rabbi Yaakov Perry, in paying homage to Goldstein, told mourners that even 1 million Arabs are not worth a Jewish fingernail. And angry voices in the congregation shouted, we are all Goldsteins and Arabs out of Israel, end quote. So instead of having a debate on the racist and genocidal ideologies being taught to Jewish children in Zionist-run schools, the focus became the demand for punishment of this radio presenter for simply reading a text message from one of his listeners. No less an outlet than the Telegraph was quick to run a propaganda piece from this man from Jewish Chronicle. The pro-Israeli lobby in the UK Board of Deputies issued a threatening statement ordering the LBC to sack James O'Brien. Wouldn't it have been easier and most effective to simply deny such allegations and say that they value the life of a non-Jew as much as they do of a Jew? It should have been as simple as that. The school in question in Hertfordshire should have come out in the open and said, look, we invite every journalist who wishes to go through our curriculum to verify whether or not we teach those kind of controversial things. But no. Did anyone say that? No. And then they always whine by playing the victim card each time their ideology or questionable ideology is exposed. That's the control of the Israeli lobby on key institutions across the West. Or else, how do you explain this continuous nonsense from the BBC, even when 2 million people are being forced to starve to death by war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu? This woman from the BBC, Martin Croxall, who earns a living by our hard-earned tax money called the license fee, is still busy issuing Israeli denial.
More than 100 aid agencies have issued a joint statement warning that mass starvation is spreading across the Gaza Strip despite Israeli denials. The signatories include major organisations such as Doctors Without Borders, Save the Children and Oxfam. The Hamas-run health ministry said more than 30 people have died from malnutrition in the past 3 days. Israel has acknowledged the drop in the amount of aid reaching Palestinians, but insisted they were seeing no signs of famine.
This despite the fact that every single UN organization and aid agency working in Gaza is saying that the situation caused by Israeli terrorists in Gaza is something no one has seen in our living memory. Listen to Bushra Khalidi from Oxfam on Sky News.
Have you ever seen anything like this before? Have you ever experienced anything of this magnitude?
This is the atrocity of our generation. This is the moment of our generation that, modern history has not seen the images that we're seeing. I mean, right now, as I'm speaking.
What is the situation on the ground in Gaza? Just how dire is it?
I mean, I hope that the world is watching the same images that I'm watching. The reason I'm even speaking to you today is because my colleagues don't even have the energy to speak. They don't have the energy to come to work. They don't have the energy to do anything because they are starving. I'm so sorry. It's just so difficult to receive these calls every single day and to speak to your colleagues and to try to imagine what is it like to not go for a meal for 2-3 days? What is it like to survive, to feel guilty for eating half a piece of bread? That's what my colleague said. She said she felt guilty because she knew that other people were more deserving of her. Another colleague told me that they went to work eating one piece of falafel with no bread, no nothing. That's what they had all day. They didn't even drink water, but they still showed up to work. We're seeing, we've heard from a mom that said she had to buy a spoon of sugar so that she could carry on because she's carrying a little baby and she's pregnant. And she said, I'm not afraid for my life, but I'm afraid for the baby that I'm carrying.
Even the head of the WHO has come out in the open now to accuse Israeli terrorists of targeting members of the World Health Organization. But the rogue BBC would still issue an Israeli denial.
On Monday, WHO personnel came under fire in the city of Deir al-Balah. The WHO staff residence was attacked, endangering personnel and their families, including children. Israeli military entered the premises, forcing women and children to evacuate on foot amid active conflict. Male personnel and family members were handcuffed, stripped, and interrogated. One colleague remains in detention. We call for his immediate release. 32 people, including women and children, were evacuated to a WHO office bordering the conflict zone. Our main warehouse, containing vital medicines and supplies, was also severely damaged. At the UN's lead health agency, WHO's operational presence in Gaza is further compromised, crippling efforts to sustain a collapsing health system and pushing survival further out of reach for more than 2 million people. Despite this, WHO and other UN agencies are staying in Gaza, and our commitment is firm. UN agencies must be protected while operating in conflict zones.
More than 100 Palestinian children and babies have now died of man-made starvation in Gaza in the last 2 days alone. People are literally dropping dead. But our politicians and institutions are busy protecting the very terrorists who have caused the biggest Holocaust since the World War II in Gaza. Al Jazeera has carried a very powerful video on the mass starvation of Palestinians in Gaza by Israeli terrorists. I have shared that video on our Telegram channel. You can watch it there. Details on the screen. This would give you a sense of just how apocalyptic the situation in Gaza is. All thanks to a bloodthirsty terrorist called Benjamin Netanyahu and his backers in the US, the UK, the EU, the BBC, and the wider West. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.